In the fight for a secular Europe, it's vital to watch closely what is happening in our democratic European institutions. A few days ago, a socialist member of the European Parliament has denounced the pressure made by the Vatican on the European members of the Parliament, asking them not to approve laws in favor of women's reproductive rights or for gay and transgender equality. The Vatican is insidiously extending its power in the European Union, and that's why it is particularly important the work of the European Humanist Federation. The European Humanist Federation, based in Brussels, unites humanist and secularist organizations across Europe, working proactively in the European Union, making the case against religious privileges and in favor of democracy. Actively involved in the humanist movement since 1961, David Pollock is a trustee of the British Humanist Association, former chair of the Nationalist Association, and has been president of the European Humanist Federation since 2006. In all these roles, David Pollock has been a champion for the principle of humanism and of a secular society, supporting human rights, opposing discrimination against non-believers, and fighting for equal treatment. Please welcome David Pollock.
Yes,
Others be talking to you today about the Vatican colluding in child abuse, opposing family planning, blocking condoms for protection against AIDS, demanding bans on abortion even for 8-year-olds who've been raped, about American bishops who've warned that a vote for Barack Obama was a mortal sin, about Cardinal Murphy O'Connor, who said that the greatest of all evils was not believing in God, about the Pope, who says that homosexuality is an intrinsic moral evil and that saving humanity from it is as important as saving the rainforests. The Pope, who spurs his English bishops on to block the government's equality bill despite its already huge exemptions for religious prejudice. I'm not going to talk to you about that. I'm the president of the European Humanist Federation, as you heard, and I want to tell you a story about the Church and the European Union. Now, we may all have strong views about the EU, for or against it, but it's a fact of life, and it's getting more important by the day. It's no longer just about markets and trade and tariffs. It's spreading into areas much closer to our concerns: human rights, medical research, family law, education. We ignore it at our peril, but it's a sign of our complacency that I have to say this to you now in 2010. The Vatican woke up to the importance of the EU many, many years ago. In March 1996, the Vatican sent a note to all EU states. It said it wanted no interference by the EU with the historic privileges the Church enjoyed in member states. It even said the Vatican wanted a formal position in the EU. In 1997, 1 year later, the Vatican got what it wanted. Germany, Italy, Austria, 3 states with big Christian Democrat, that is Roman Catholic parties, got a declaration into the EU's Amsterdam Treaty. In it, the EU declared that it would respect and would not prejudice the status under national law of churches in the EU, in member states. So the EU gave away the right to adopt non-discrimination and human rights laws unless they allowed the churches to carry on untouched. That's why EU law on employment equality and the EU draft directive on equality in the provision of goods and services have such huge gaping holes in them for the churches to slip through. The next step was in 2002. Romano Prodi, EU Commission President and a good Catholic, actually asked the churches for proposals for, quote, a structured dialogue between the churches and the European Commission. The Vatican got together with the other churches and they sent in their proposals in a document that's still not been officially published, but it was leaked to the European Humanist Federation. It's on our website. Its demands are staggering. They wanted to be consulted in advance on all planned legislation. They wanted regular dialogue with EU policy staff. They wanted working sessions on specific issues, I'm quoting, whenever the churches have a particular concern. They wanted personal meetings with the President of the European Commission. And they wanted a liaison office inside the Commission's offices in order to develop partnership with it. In effect, they wanted a license to interfere with the European Union wherever and wherever they wanted. And guess what? They've got everything they wanted and more, except for that physical office inside the Commission Secretariat. In the endless debates about the abortive European Constitution, they lost a battle over putting Christianity into the preamble, but that only served to distract attention, as they wanted, from the war that they won, of getting an EU undertaking to hold regular meetings, regular dialogue with the churches. So it's there in the Lisbon Treaty, recognising, the treaty says, their identity and their specific contribution, whatever that is, the Union shall maintain an open, transparent and regular dialogue with the churches. And still the Vatican isn't satisfied. After the treaty had been agreed, the president of their conference of bishops went on record listing the privileges they had. It's raining, so I'm going to miss out his list. But after he'd listed all these privileges, he said, these talks are indeed necessary, but they alone, in our view, are not enough to satisfy the offer of an open, transparent and regular dialogue. The Vatican wants more. This dialogue is not the ordinary consultation the EU has with everyone else. It puts the Vatican in a special position, with privileged access to the very top levels of the EU at the earliest stage before any proposals reach public consultation. And though the other churches, and for that matter in theory the EHF, are nominally in the same position, it's the Vatican, with its wealth, its diplomatic service, its political parties, its willingness where necessary to use brute force, that is set up to exploit its treaty privileges. So when we look to the future, and we think about the EU getting into education policy, think about a directive that entrenches subsidies for Catholic schools and universities. And as the EU gets into research policy, think about how funding may be cut off for genetic research. And as the EU influences family law, think about the Vatican's pernicious policies on gays or on abortion. And with the EU's growing involvement in overseas aid, think about the Vatican getting a Bush-like ban on condoms for family planning or AIDS protection. This protest today is no relic of an out-of-date anti-religious dogma. It has a vital message for the future of a liberal Europe. As religion plays less and less of a role in ordinary people's lives, the Vatican is consolidating its position in the corridors of power. It's our responsibility to demonstrate that this is happening and to prevent it. Let's have a secular Europe now. No Vatican.
Yes! Secular Europe now!
Thank you, Dad.